What's going on, everybody? JT the Chef here, and today we're going to go over what we saw in the markets last week, also what we can look going forward into next week with the markets. Before we get started, please make sure to smash that like button if you love this video, as well as subscribe to our channel here at Chef Trades. You're going to love all the content that we have here, plus check out anything that we have with our links in the description below. So without further ado, let's get started. Today is November 17th, 2024, getting into next week. Now, taking a look here at the NASDAQ. Now, yesterday was Friday. Friday, very interesting day, kind of massive red day. But I kind of go into what's actually happened since the election. So let's actually look a little bit tighter here. Let's look at a 4-hour chart here let's go back and look. So here we've got the election results here's Tuesday night, and here's when the election results started coming out on Tuesday night. Here's the 6 o'clock candle right here. Okay, and you can see that we have pretty much now given back all of the election gains since election night from the Trump victory. I think that's very noteworthy. I think that's not something that we want to ignore personally. Definitely not something I want to ignore. Now, here is our most recent low, and you can see that if we take a Fibonacci from that low there to our high, you can see we're kind of resting here right at the 707 line. This is a line on my fib levels that I like to keep up with. Kind of like my line in the sand. You know, whenever the golden zone gets overshot, that's what I look for personally. And you can see that right now, that's kind of what's just holding us up. Now, does the market want to continue and then retest these lows here? That's something I'll be looking for early into next week if the weakness wants to continue. We'll go back to the daily chart real quick to check that out. And you can see it was kind of funny because, you know, after the election, very bullish all that week. Coming into that Friday, we kind of lost a little bit of the momentum. And then we had a pretty interesting spinning top here develop on Monday, followed by two candles that tried to get below prior day's low those next 2 days, but ended up closing back above those lows. But ultimately on Thursday, we actually did take out and close below the prior day's low on Wednesday. And when I saw that, that to me let me know that the trend is possibly actually really changing, because we did get a candle closing below in the daily, and we saw that continuation move heavy into Friday. So now personally, I'll be looking for Monday. If it is a green day at all on Monday, I would kind of expect the market to be somewhere within the range of Friday. Or if we get below the low of Friday, I think further continuation possibly down the rest of the week, heading towards this low. And there's a massive earnings announcement on Wednesday with NVIDIA, we'll talk about here in a little bit, that is probably also going to shape the way the NASDAQ is going to go. So there's that. Now let's take a look actually at Friday here, because I want to actually look at Friday a little bit deeper just to kind of show you how massive of a move. So here you go. You can see we're looking at this now, and here's the London session, right? And here's our open right here, Friday morning around 3 a.m. You can see we were trading down, of course, from the open of Globex. Pretty much, you also notice this, how bearish of a day it was actually on Friday. From the Globex open, we actually never revisited the opening range in Globex and continued to trade lower. From the open of Europe, we kind of tested briefly above the open pre-market in the New York session, but then we just kind of sold off from there. And the moment that we had our open here in New York, you can see that we just sold right off the open, and we did not really revisit it. We had a small retest right here, but we didn't quite get all the way back up to the opening range low, and then we just traded lower the rest of the day. We had this one singular candle that closed back above here on the 15-minute, but that was completely negated the next candle. We did not have another candle close back above until about 2:30. That's where we did see a nice little bounce at the end of the day, a nice little bear flag going into the close. So quite a day there in the NASDAQ. And as you know, NASDAQ is my favorite one to look at, so that's why we go a little bit deeper into that. But that's what I saw there in the NASDAQ. The other thing I wanted to point out here on the daily chart is we did make a new high here in the NASDAQ, but we did make that new high, but we immediately sold off from that high. So what that's telling me is that although we did make a new high, that new high is not being supported. The other thing I want to note is that there was a lot of money coming off the sidelines, off the Trump victory, moving into the markets possibly. And now that money that pushed the markets up possibly may be trapped on the wrong side of the trade. So that's something that I want to keep note of, and I want to watch to see if this actually may end up being our bigger, longer term top here that maybe some of us have been waiting for. Now let's take a look at the ES, or the S&P E-mini futures. Now, the S&P did make a new high on Monday, but was a bearish candle, again, kind of like a spinning top up here. We did get a close below on the daily that following day, and you can see that each day corresponding, we failed to get back above the previous day's high. Now, that being said, if you do a fib just from this low to the high, we did get a decent bounce right off the 50 there, so we'll see if that'll hold for the S&P. We also did get down below this prior day's, this high right here, which is our previous high that we had, our previous all-time high back in October. So if we can get back above that, I think that would be bullish for the markets. But that's another line in the sand that I will be watching into next week. Also, if the market continues to push lower and fails to hold 58.20 next week, I think we can easily retest these lows down at the 5,720 area. So that'll be something to watch there. Now, let's take a look at some other assets that some of us like to trade. Number one, we'll look at gold. Gold has been trading down ever since. Pretty much the election caught us off with a huge downward move, and you can see we've just been trading lower ever since, trying to find some traction there, but just really nothing to go for. Now, I am noticing that the momentum down the last couple of days has slowed a little bit. If you were actually just take just a little draw of this, you can see that we've kind of just come down, and now we're starting to curl here. So the fact we're starting to curl here is something I want to note, because if we start to get a little bit of reversal here, that's something I want to look for. Maybe a retracement before we make our next move back to the downside, which I'm not sure that we will make another move to the downside. But nonetheless, I'm going to be taking a look here, watching this to see if we do start to get a pop back up, back pushing us up into the 2600 area. And if we do get above that and then back above our previous low that we had here, if that does not act as resistance, then I think that we can push back into this 2670 to 2700 range, and that would be a decent opportunity possibly to look at in the future. All right, that's it on gold. Next thing I want to look at here is I want to look at oil. Now, oil actually ended up breaking its trend on Friday. Right here, you can see we had this nice little uptrend we were developing, but then we just lost it. Now, one day doesn't make a trend. Now we can close one day out and reclaim it. It'll be interesting to see how that works out going into next week. We did get some news later this Sunday. We got some news about possibly the U.S. ramping things up in regards to Ukraine. So we'll see how that plays out, but we shall see there. The other thing I am watching here is that we don't have any long draws on the daily holding, but we do have short draws currently holding. So if we do decide to make a new low, I do think we will target the 64.18 right here. Okay, so if we do start to make a new low, this continues to hold down, then I think we can target that 64.18. All right. Outside of that, if we pop back above this trend, then possibly head back up to the 72 area here in oil. All right, next thing here I want to take a look at is the earnings going into next week. So next week we've got some pretty massive earnings going on. We can actually go over every single one that we do have here. So we got Bit Digital on Monday. We've got here Symbotic after hours on Monday. But we have some big names here to go on Tuesday. We got Walmart, Lowe's, Medtronic here. XPEV, these guys sell electric vehicles. And then after the close, we got Powell Industries on Tuesday. And then going into Wednesday is the big Super Bowl of earnings day after that. So we got Target in the morning. We've got NIO, which is the Chinese car manufacturer. We've got TJX companies. So those are like TJ Maxx. Wix, Williams-Sonoma, those things. But NVIDIA, again, after hours on Wednesday, going to drive prices all over the place. We've also got Snowflake and Palo Alto Networks. All right. Thursday, we got PDD Holdings. We've got Baidu. Again, this seems to be Chinese week as far as the earnings as well. We also have Deere, major Dow component, something to definitely watch. Intuit, after hours, NetApp, just a couple other ones there. And that's going to be it for us as far as earnings going into next week. Now let's take a look at what we have on the economic calendar for next week. So looking at the economic calendar, we do have the Bank of Japan talking today after hours here on Sunday the 17th. That should be interesting. They usually move the markets pretty big. Another thing is tomorrow we also, on Monday the 18th, we start the G20 meetings. So some things may be said during that. Lagarde will speak in the afternoon tomorrow. We've got Goolsbee tomorrow at 10 a.m. as well. He'll be talking, but no major U.S. economic data on Monday. As far as Tuesday, economic data for the U.S., we do have building permits and housing starts. We have an FOMC member, Schmidt, speaking. But that's it for that. We do have rates for the Chinese being announced there at 8 o'clock, the prime rates for the 1 and 5 year notes for them. CPI, as far as in Canada, that doesn't usually move our U.S. markets too much, but it is something to just kind of keep an eye out for if you are trading a dollar related or even oil. That may move oil a little bit with the CPI there at 8:30 with Canada. Now on Wednesday, we've got CPI coming out of Great Britain. We do have crude oil inventories at 10:30 a.m. And again, we have more FOMC members speaking, as well as, again, the Bank of Japan speaking sometime that day as well. 8:30 on Thursday, we got unemployment claims and Philly Fed manufacturing. Existing home sales at 10 o'clock, so something to keep up with as well, with news coming out after the market open. And then on Friday, we've got a ton of PMI data coming out across the globe. We've got PMI data coming out of Europe, as well as PMI data coming out of the United States at 9:45. So after the market open, 15 minutes after the market open, we've got that economic data coming out, and we also have consumer sentiment coming out at 10 o'clock. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys had a great weekend, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. If you guys have any questions, just hit me up in the Discord, and I will see y'all tomorrow.